Hey everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another Makers with Heart video hop. This month, the Makers with Heart are featuring thin cuts. So I'm using several of the standalone thin cuts, and then I'm also going to use a coordinating stamp called With Love for my sentiments. Okay, so the first thin cut that I'm going to use is called Floral Frame. And then I'm going to use Sprigs and Leaves and butterfly layers. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to make 3 cards. So first I'm going to cut some white daisy cardstock and I'm going to do some ink blending. So I'm just cutting this at like 4.5 by 6, and I'll trim it down later on. And then I'm going to bring in my Altenew Ultra Sticky Mat. So this is, it was developed to be used with their stamp wheel, but it's also been found to be a great mat to just stick whatever you're working on it so that it doesn't shift around. So it works great for ink blending or stenciling. Okay, so I've pulled a selection of colors. I've got Harbor and Lagoon, and I started out with Seabrook, but you'll see I change that up later on. And I'm going to use my blending brushes, and I'm just going to do a color wash. So I'll speed this up in a second, and it looks kind of like a big mess here with the blotches, but just keep in mind as the ink dries, it'll smooth out. So don't worry about that, and then I'll have things on top of it. So I'm not too concerned about the blotchiness. Then I'm going to go in with some Lagoon, and I'm going to blend that down into the Harbor and just pull it down and layer it. And then at the top I'm going to put Seabrook, but I felt like that wasn't dark enough, so I'm going to come in with some Glacier and add that. And it looks really dark, but as that color dries it's going to lighten up, so no worries. Okay, so this is portrait style, and the first card that I'm going to make is landscape. So I'm going to do this exact same blend, only in a landscape style, and I'll save this one that I just did for another card later on in this video. Okay, so I'm just choosing which glitter paper I want to use with that blend, and I've decided on the white glitter paper. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this cover plate. It's the floral frame. And I've found with these intricate dies, the chrome plate is a big help. And if you put it through with your plate on a diagonal like this, I use the Big Shot switch, and it's got a 9 by 12 plate area, so you can use a smaller plate with it and then put it in on a diagonal. And if I use it with the chrome plate, then it just cuts everything up beautifully. Okay, so now I've done that same blend on a landscape orientation. And this Altenew mat, it just cleans up. It's like a giant stamp without any images cut into it. And so it cleans up just like a stamp does. And so I'm going to clean it up with my stamp chamois, and then I'm going to do another ink blend. And over it, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So I'm using Periwinkle, and then I'm checking with that die that fits in the center of this floral frame where I want my ink blend to be. And then I'm going in with honey butter. Okay. So we've got a nice blend there, and then I'll flip over my Versamat for stamping. And I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. And it says, "Thanks so much." Thank you so much, sorry. Okay, and then off camera, I'll go ahead and die cut that with the coordinating die. Okay, so we'll go ahead and run that through off camera. And then we can start assembling. Okay, so like I said before, I've got a larger ink blended piece, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that down to my card front size, which is 5.5 by 4.25. So we'll just trim off some of that excess, and then that floral frame die cut piece gets layered right on top. So I'm looking at this and I'm not liking the color blend. So I decided to save that for another card, and I went ahead and did the same exact color blend as the base, and then I stamped that "thank you so much." And then I've cut several more white images in that same die cut shape, and I'm just going to layer them. And I got this trick from my friend Jess, and it looks like a chipboard piece after you're done. Okay, so I have everything layered together, and then I'm going to take this gold paint pen from Spectrum Noir, and I'm going to trace around the edges so it'll give it a gold frame to my sentiment. So if you just carefully trace around, there's kind of a bit of an indentation when you run the die through, so you can kind of see where the paint should go, and it gives a nice finish. And it looks like foiling. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start layering everything on the card front. We'll go ahead and put the ink blended piece down with Tombow tape runner. This is the Air Touch tape runner. And then I'll add my die cut piece with wet glue. The needle tip allows me to get in all those little tiny spots. And then I'll layer my sentiment. And after I did this, I felt like it was done. Didn't need anything extra. The camera doesn't pick it up, but that shimmer from that white glitter paper is just stunning. With a little bit of color underneath, it just looks so pretty. Clean and simple, but still really pretty, I think. Okay, let's make another one. This is going to be with the Sprigs and Leaves Slimline thin cut, and I'm going to die cut it with Harbor. Okay, so all of these pieces that are die cut, keep them. Okay, so go ahead and poke them all out, but don't throw anything away. Keep all of those bits of glitter and all of those leaves. So this is kind of it's like a no waste die cut, all right? So save those for another card. So I'm going to layer it in right now. I have Seabrook glitter paper. You'll see I switch that up in a second. So I'm going to use that die cut that I had created with the ink blend with the periwinkle and honey butter ink blend. I'm going to use that on this card, and then I've die cut the dragonfly from the Butterflylayers set. So I have the wings in honey butter, and then the detail in periwinkle glitter paper, and then the body is in black cardstock. So I'm just layering everything together, and then I've made 2 more layers of the just white cardstock underneath so that I can create a chipboard piece. And I'm just paper piecing everything together right now. So we have our dragonfly, and then we have our sentiment. And I felt like it needed to be anchored. But first I felt like the Seabrook glitter paper was just a little too much. So I went ahead and got a piece of regular Seabrook cardstock, and I've cut that at a slimline size, which is 3.5 by 8.5. And I'm going to layer that underneath the Harbor die cut piece. Okay, So we'll go ahead and start assembling, deciding on if I want it the light side or the dark side. I decided to go ahead and go with the regular dark side. And then we'll layer in that harbor piece, again with wet glue, so I can get in all those nooks and crannies. And then I felt like I needed to anchor that sentiment. So I've got a piece of the Seabrook glitter paper, and that's cut at 1 by 3.5. And then I'm going to wrap around it some gold ribbon. So this is retired gold ribbon from Close to My Heart. It's, I don't know, super old, retired. And I'm just wrapping a little bit of that around using some glue dots. And then we'll add our sentiment. And then we'll add the dragonfly. Takes a second to set up. And then we'll call this one done. I think it's enough with all those intricate cuts. Such a pretty die cut. Thin cut piece. Okay, we'll call that one done. Here's some close-up shots. So many uses. And with the bundle, there's the stamp set. So if you wanted some detail on those leaves, you could add that with the stamp set. There's an embossing folder and a stencil as well. Okay, last card. I'm going to use that first blended piece that was portrait style, and I'm going to stamp out my sentiment on white daisy with Harbor ink. And this one says, "Thinking of you." And then we'll go ahead and die cut that with the coordinating die. Okay, and then I've cut a few more so I can layer those up and make a chipboard piece. And then we'll go ahead and use some of that gold paint marker around the edges. I've sped this up super fast. But this one I actually did it in the range of the camera so you could see, so I'm gonna keep it in. I just sped it up so you can see painting around the edges. And we'll start layering things on our card front. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put our ink blended piece down with mono tape runner. And then I'll pop my sentiment with a little bit of foam tape. And I'm just putting it down at the base so that I can tuck things under my sentiment. You'll see what I mean in a second. So again, I felt like I needed to anchor this. These are the cuts that came out of that slimline sprigs and leaves die. And I'm just going to cluster them above my sentiment. So I felt like I needed to anchor that as well. So I'm going to bring in some retired Dreammaker paper. This is just a little scrap. Keep all those scraps, and it has the coordinating colors in it. So this is about 1 inch by 4.25. And I'm going to layer my sentiment on top of that. And then it just feels like everything's anchored with that strip. So go through your scraps and see what kind of pattern papers you have. And then I can tuck all those sprigs underneath the top of my sentiment. Okay, so I'm just going to arrange them and then I'll glue all those down. And then I still felt like it needed a little something. So I'm going to bring in my Harbor shimmer brush and my splat box. And then I'm using some scratch paper to cover up my sentiment. I'm just going to splatter some of this Harbor shimmer all around the top portion of my card, just to add a little shine and shimmer to that. And then I still felt like it needed something on the base, so I brought in a scrap of gold foil. I'm going to put that down, and then off camera, before I took my still pictures, I added a tiny strip of glacier as well, and you'll see right here. Then I felt like it was finished. So make sure you click on the playlist at the end of this video, and you can see what the other Makers with Heart have done with thin cuts this month. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it, and then you'll be able to find all of my videos. And thanks for watching.